Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. For today's lesson, topic 2, we are going to look at regulatory frameworks as well as the code of conducts in assurance. So we are going to we have covered basically an introduction about regulatory frameworks, okay, in the earlier class, where I did mention a little bit about who are the authorities that actually in charge in regards to the auditors, external auditors in particular, as well as accountant as the preparers of the financial statement. Okay, so today we are more specific to look at on the regulatory framework that actually govern the internal auditor, the auditor, external auditor, and then we're also looking at what are the particular authorities or regulations that actually govern the conducts of the audit firms. Okay, as well as we are also looking at the regulatory frameworks that actually govern, okay, preparers or accountants in business. All right. So we are going to look at MIA bylaws, Companies Act 2016, and MCCG. The latest version is actually being issued recently in April 2021. Of course, the first version is MCCG year 2000, okay, but over the years it has been override by the revised version, which is in 2007, 2012, and latest is actually 2021. Okay, so today basically we have also covered why actually importance to have the regulatory frameworks to govern the conducts of the auditors. Okay, because in the early class I also will mention about the importance of the audit quality. All right, how if actually auditors did not perform their work properly, or when the audit firm did not actually practice a proper conducts. Okay, in the context of external audit, providing financial statement audit. Okay, hence it would actually could results into corporate scandal. The same thing together also with regards to the accountants, okay, who are the preparers of the financial statement. Why is it actually important in particular the professional conducts of the accountants in the business? All right, because there are reasons, okay, there are also differences between accountants that actually work or practice, okay, as an accountant in business, as well as when they practice as an accountant in public professions. Okay, so basically there are two different contexts. Okay, so the first one is accountant in the business, which is so-called accountant, CFO, financial controller, and so on. But the other context is actually accountants who is actually performing or practice in the context of public accountants. So this is so-called auditors, okay, who is actually working in the certified public accountants, or we call them CPA or public accounting firm. Again, so these are the two main aspects that we have actually discussed in the earlier class when we're talking about financial reporting quality and also audit quality. Okay. All right. So you have to know specifically which particular regulations is actually issued or governed by which particular authority. Okay, because especially for those listed company, we do have many regulatory bodies that actually govern the conducts of the accountants, auditors, and so on. Okay, so we have to know if you can actually recall back, okay, which particular authorities that would actually govern a particular profession. Okay, in particular we have to know in the first place the company is actually what, listed company or Sdn Bhd. Okay, of course if you are a listed company, all right, you are more stringent, you are more regulated by many authorities, okay, regardless whether the financial reporting process as well as the accountant as the preparer inside the financial reporting process. So first we will actually look at the company's commission, because the first place when the company is actually being set up, okay, when the company is actually being incorporated, hence you are actually governed by the Companies Act. So the Companies Act is actually issued by Companies Commission. So the earlier version of the Companies Act is Companies Act 1965. Okay, but recently in 2016, of course it takes years to do the revision of the act. Okay, so finally it come out with the revised version of Companies Act 2016. So hence we are actually looking at the latest version of the Companies Act and which particular sections that is actually relevant. The first sections that we are supposed to look at is actually accounts. So this aspect would actually refer to the preparer of the financial reporting, as well as the other section which is also applicable in this context is audits. Okay, because audit would actually govern the conducts of the external auditor. Okay, because we know that okay, the presence of the external auditor in providing assurance services is actually being stipulated or being initiated by the requirement of the Companies Act. Okay, so that's the first framework or regulations that we are going to look at briefly. Okay, and then the second one is the MIA bylaw. Okay, MIA bylaw specifically is talking about Code of Ethics and Professional Conducts. So the Code of Ethics is actually with regard to the accountant per se. Okay, because that means it include accountant in the business as well as accountant that actually practice in public accounting firm. So what as an auditor, as an accountant on individual basis, what are the requirements that you need to comply with, okay, in accordance to the codes of conduct stipulated by MIA by law. Whereas for the audit firm, okay, for the audit firm, though they are the firm, but they also have to do some policies, procedures, practices, and so on. So the conduct of the audit firm is also being stipulated under MIA by law. So that would actually can be referred to under professional behavior. So later we will see briefly. All right. What are the example of the professional behaviors that audit firm need to comply with in what aspect? Why? What are the main reason why audit firm have to comply with that particular specific professional conducts and so on. Okay, so at audit fundamental level, all right, we would not expect you to know very much in detail, okay, or in depth, all right, but it will be suffice if you at least know a little bit about the concept, okay, and a little bit about duties, the rights, responsibilities of the in charge party, what we call them as a those charged with governance, okay, those charged with the governance. Hence, at least give you some idea and overview of the parties that actually involved in the overall process of financial reporting, okay, because the whole idea is to prepare the good quality of financial reporting. Okay, so last but not least is the Securities Commission, right? So Securities Commission is actually very specific, would govern the listed entities. Okay, that means if you are listed entities, hence you actually need to abide with regards to the requirements that stipulated or issued by Securities Commission. There are many other, okay, but for your level, okay, at audit fundamental, we would only look at briefly what is MCCG, the components, okay, the actors within the MCCGs and so on. Okay, all right, so these are the three. Okay, so these are the three. So the Companies Act, we specifically will actually look at the appointment of the auditors, okay, reappointment of the auditors, and then removal or termination, as well as resignation as an auditor. So what are the do's and the don'ts that auditors can do actually in regards to the requirement that's stipulated under Companies Act? So one thing that you have to take note is that when you're talking about act is actually something that you need to comply with, okay, because otherwise if you do not comply with, hence you would be exposed to a certain penalty or fine. Okay, so fine, of course, it will involve amount of money that you need to pay. At the same time, you are also exposed to be jailed, okay, if you did not comply to certain sections within the Companies Act. Okay, MIA by law is actually a guideline. Okay, guideline is to tell the accountants, the auditors, whoever within the accounting profession, what are the proposed code of ethics, okay, ethical conducts that you need to comply with as an individual, regardless whether you are accountant or you are auditors or tax accountant, etc. Okay, and also for MCCG, it would actually govern the or cover very specific, okay, if you go through the MCCG, very much cover on the board of directors, okay, but at the same time it's also touch a little bit about audit committee, okay, but here and there you will see how the role of the external auditors, internal auditors would actually be relate, okay, to the parties of the board of directors, as well as its relationship of the whole governance mechanism to the management, all right, as an agent, as well as the shareholders, okay, as a principal within the company. Okay, so I hope you should be able to recall back the concept of the agency theory, which is the relationship between agent and principal.